WrestleBeards, we got all your wrestling gear. WrestleBeards, woo! Hairy man with dirty beards. WrestleBeards Worldwide.
Am I here on time?
Mate, it's been about, I think, nearly 2 years since the last podcast. Where the hell have you been?
I've been busy. I've been busy getting married,
Mate,
having a baby. I've been busy. What about you?
they don't seem like valid excuses. Well, maybe nothing on that level. I did move countries. I'm now living in New Zealand. Yeah.
You're now 6 hours ahead of me, right?
Pretty crazy. So just to align all this up has been a little bit in the making, but we got here. WrestleBeards podcast number 12.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We're coming back strong. We've got a new direction. We're going to basically fine-tune some of the things that we used to do. We're not going to do too much news going forward. We're going to keep it just to the banter and a few favorite segments. Isn't that right?
That's it. Yeah, that's it. So we've cut the wheat with the chaff and just come out with some good stuff now.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Oh, well, we might as well get underway with the first segment, which is called Hot Topics. And basically, it's just chiming off one another. Luke's going to throw a big topic in the wrestling world out there, and then I'll do the same, and we're just going to basically banter. So, Luke, what is the biggest piece of, hot topic out there at the moment in the wrestling world? What could it be?
Well, we had a big return on Monday Night Raw. Rhea Ripley is back, and she came back and she trashed Aaliyah. Like, I'm joking, of course. It's Vinnie Mac, the scandal, and then the inevitable, I think, retirement, which came in last Friday, Saturday our time, I think, nuts, just before SmackDown. It was crazy.
I never fathomed that in our lifetime we would have a WWE that was not run by Vince McMahon.
No, it's so strange, isn't it?
Well,
I was thinking about it the other day that I expected him to die in that position.
Of course.
I expected him to die as the CEO, the head booker, chief booker of WWE.
I think he expected that, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, we're going to then a month of mourning, and then we'll come out of it on top. We'd all have to wear suits and walk around like that for a month.
I mean, he's a bad man. Let's be real. In real life, the things that we've heard come unstuck recently with these paying off women for sexual conquests and cover up stories. I mean, that's not good. That's what do you say? It's like using his power, using his wealth. He's just seems like a real evil person. But I can't seem to. There's Vince, the guy who created everything I know about wrestling. There's Vince, the character, Mr. McMahon character that I love. And then there's this guy who I really think is filthy and disgusting. And it's hard to sort of, understand how I can, work my mind around it. Are you feeling the same?
It's hard to cut away, actually. It's hard to see where does Vince McMahon, the real man, stop and where does the character begin. They kind of divulge into one another, but you're right. Like, he's obviously a pretty shady character, pretty not the best guy, and the stuff that's been released. I think this is just like the surface being scratched. I think there's going to be lots more coming out, and that's why.
Yeah, I think it's been in the works for some time. We've seen them culling workers for the last few years off the roster, either in front of the camera wrestlers and other on-screen personalities, or people behind the scenes. So I think that they have been trying to cut the fat off per se, so that they can save some money for maybe a potential sale was in the works. Maybe they always foresaw that something might go crazy with this Vince scandal, but I just think it's nuts, man. I think it's really
it's pretty sleazy, and it'll be interesting to see if there are any more and how many more come out now. Because you got to think it's been like there've been previous accusations in the past, and it's kind of just fallen by the wayside. But it seems like it's caught so much sort of attention now that he just had no other way to go. And certainly, like I don't know if you remember this, but when the scandal first broke, and then he introduced SmackDown and said, "Now then, forever together," and dropped the microphone. Oh, God, this guy.
And it was heavily promoted as Mr. McMahon. The character is making a, appearance tonight on SmackDown. I think he did another one on Raw the following week. And I was like, oh, it was quite cringy. Yeah. Anyway, not my, favorite piece of wrestling news going on at the moment, or favorite thing in wrestling. But that said, it could be the horizon of some exciting times in WWE. We've got Triple H, head of creative now, which is really cool after seeing what he did with the former NXT. We've got Stephanie and I think, what's his name?
Nick Khan.
Nick Khan. They're the new CEOs of the company. So there is a bit of structure. I mean, it's his daughter and son-in-law. I mean, it's not...
Well, and Vince he's still the majority shareholder as well, isn't he? So he does have some leeway still.
Exactly. Well, I don't know. I did watch Raw this week, and I did find it did have kind of a different kind of feel to it. I don't know. It did feel kind of cool. I mean, it started off quite edgy with Logan Paul and Miz having a fight as the cameras came on the air, and I don't know, it just seemed quite cool. Roman Reigns was in attendance for a change. I don't know.
Roman Reigns wrestled on a TV show for the longest time.
Cool. I don't think they're going to suffer from not having Vince involved too much, but he is a creative genius at the heart of it, and he did make some amazing decisions that obviously left to this company becoming what it was. So I don't know. I'm very mixed.
Yeah, quite torn in between, right? It's hard to remain sort of thankful to him, but also we're genuine blokes and we have our own opinions, and it's not right.
Do you think he ever gets in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, of course he does. They'll wait for it to die down. This was something that one of my favorite podcasts, Cultaholic, were discussing the other day. And it's just wait for it to die down, and then he'll be inducted. And they said probably inducted by Stone Cold, which I think would be very good.
He's not quite Chris Benoit levels of scandal. I think that he can't miss out on something like the Hall of Fame. So I think
no.
Okay, well,
and they've inducted other people.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, my big kind of hot topic at the moment is from the AEW side of things and the Ring of Honor side of things. Thought for just a bit of a counterbalance. Nowhere on the level of the Vince McMahon scandal and retirement, but we've just had the, I'm just looking down here, the Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view, which was kind of the new rebranding of Ring of Honor under Tony Khan, who's obviously the head of AEW, the owner of AEW. He's now the owner of Ring of Honor, and they brought back Ring of Honor, and it was all exciting, bells and whistles for a little while there. Obviously, Samoa Joe made a comeback and a few others along the way on AEW television. So anyway, at the end of the previous Ring of Honor, as it was, Jonathan Gresham was the world champion. And at this first pay-per-view, he defended against a big favorite of the wrestling world, formerly Cesaro. I've got his hat here. Don't forget the hat. But now known as his real name, Claudio Castagnoli. And Claudio beat him to become the new Ring of Honor champion, which was huge news. Good on Claudio / Cesaro. But then we hear that just before the pay-per-view hit, Jonathan Gresham was not too happy and actually handed in his papers, and he's gone from Ring of Honor / AEW. What do you think about this, Luke?
Yeah, it's obviously he wasn't best pleased about handing over the title to Castagnoli, he's only just joined AEW, and I don't know whether that was the plan, whether he was going to defend it, but something has gone awry. So the belt is now on Castagnoli, and I think he's rightly peeved about that, losing it to somebody clean as well, who's brand new in the company. They're looking to raise their stock. There are plenty of other ways that AEW could do that. I think it was a bit of a poor move to do that. But
Gresham's a hell of a
standing by his guns and getting out.
Yeah, Gresham's a hell of a talent. He's a wee man. He's about Rey Mysterio's size, funny enough. He's not a very big guy. But he brought a lot to the Ring of Honor brand. Very pure style. He was obviously the pure champion there for a while, then went on to be the world champion. Had some great battles with Jay Lethal and Bandito and others. I really got into Ring of Honor over the last little while just because I wanted to be interested in the resurgence. But yeah, it's a real shame. Do you think we might see him turn up in, let's say, WWE?
Well, perhaps now that obviously Vince is gone, and he would strike you as a Triple H kind of guy. Perhaps he does. Perhaps he sort of makes an appearance at a Royal Rumble or something. I can't see him going straight in. No. There's going to be some sort of no compete clauses in there. But yeah, like that could be quite interesting. How far he gets. Perhaps he goes over to NXT and tries to rebuild NXT a little bit, because that's
cool.
That's down in the doldrums.
Obviously, he'll only be known as Gresham if he does come to WWE.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was cool for the first segment back. Hot topics. Not too much news, but more of a banter session, and that was really cool. So moving right along, our old favourite session that we're going to bring back is the top three. And leading on from what you already started, Luke, our top three this week is the top three Vince McMahon, I guess Mr. McMahon, the character, moments of all time. So we're going to back and forth tell our top three from third favorite, I guess, down to your top favorite, back and forth, and we're just going to see how we go. So have you got something to kick us off with?
Yeah, so yeah, we are, just to be clear, this is the character Vince McMahon. We're not going to be saying, oh, the time he paid off that female talent, that's not in here. But some of this stuff does, as I said, divulge into maybe who Vince McMahon was as a man, but showed as an on-screen character. So the first one is him fathering an out of wedlock son, the fathering of Hornswoggle, and this was it makes me laugh because now looking at it, it's connecting the dots back. It's not too
maybe he really is Hornswoggle's
could be the case. Not be Hornswoggle's father, but be father of somebody out of wedlock. So yeah, going back and forth, there was a character called Mr. Kennedy at the time I loved, and then the storyline dropped. Yeah, the storyline dropped of Vince being a father, and I think it was Triple H and Stephanie who were trying to get at him. They were at odds with one another, and it was saying it was looking like it was Mr. Kennedy, and it wasn't Mr. Kennedy, and so everyone was, well, who is it? And they said, oh, it's somebody who likes gold, and it's somebody who is Caucasian, so it's champions and non-black talent, and somebody who likes to play the game or likes to play games. I think they said very, very key words here, and he's looking at Triple H like, oh my God, Triple H married my daughter. What's going on? Because Triple H is the game, and then lo and behold, Hornswoggle comes out from underneath the ring and is hugging hugging Vince McMahon. And then what proceeds is Vince McMahon then over the coming weeks trying to get Hornswoggle to go the McMahon way and rule with an iron fist. And in the end, it comes out that Fit Finlay, or Finlay as he was called in WWE, was Hornswoggle's real father, and it was JBL who outed this. And then we got one of the biggest pumps at WrestleMania during Finlay and JBL, and JBL hits Hornswoggle over the head with a trash can lid and nearly kills the poor guy. But yeah, just thinking back, and it was a funny time in WWE, and looking now, could be all too real.
Well, Hornswoggle was always the case. It was like break glass and Hornswoggle is your answer for most storylines in the WWE. Yeah. He was the Raw general manager. He was like part of DX for a little while there. I can't remember. There was a few other things he was involved with. But yeah, I mean, the guy's name in real life, I think Darren or David Postal. And he seems like a decent kind of guy. I don't know why they ever got rid of him. I guess they just had enough fun of making fun of his size and moved on. But it'd be nice to see him back in the WWE one day.
He made an appearance, didn't he, a couple of years ago at what was it? The Greatest Royal Rumble or something? He was out there for, and they do bring him back for little things here and there, a nice payday for him.
Cool. Okay, well, that was a good start. I've got my papers here. My number 3 spot goes back to WrestleMania 23 and the build-up when Donald Trump, everyone's favorite US president, Donald Trump was making some appearances on WWE programming, and him and Vince were all pals at the start. And then it was this weird segment that kind of led to all this happening where Vince was trying to like play with Donald Trump's tie and all this weird stuff, and they got into a bit of fisticuffs, and it led to a bit of a program between the two. Now, there was a while that people were thinking maybe they were actually going to have a fight themselves, Donald Trump versus Vince McMahon. But actually, no, it led to each of them having a wrestler representing them at WrestleMania. So in Donald Trump's corner, he had Bobby Lashley. And in Vince's corner, he had the late, great Umaga. How do you say it? Umaga?
Umaga.
Yeah, Umaga. I get it confused because of Tana Umaga, which is spelled the same. And obviously, both have Pacific Island connections. But yeah, anyway. So they both had a battle, Umaga and Lashley, at WrestleMania with the two billionaires. It was called the Battle of the Billionaires in each corner, with Austin as the special guest referee. And it came down to it that McMahon's guy lost, and then he got his head shaved bald in the middle of the ring, which was just fantastic. And say what you want about the man, but he's willing to do anything for the crowd and for the money. He'll do anything for the publicity. So he got legit shaved bald. It wasn't like some of these people back in the day who just had a few scrapes shaved off.
Yeah.
He wore a wig the next week and it was forgotten about. No, he was proper bald. And it wasn't just, it wasn't over there. He then went on a few months of like doing some other weird things. Like he won the ECW world title.
Yeah.
That brand in operation. And it was just really bizarro time to see Mr. McMahon bald and loving life. So that was my number 3 spot. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, it's a good one. It's one that you do remember. I think this was probably my first recollection of Donald Trump, actually.
Yeah.
And now look at him. Obviously, he's ex-president and has probably one of the most famous men in the world.
Oh, forget that though. He is the WWE Hall of Famer.
He is, yeah, Hall of Famer as well. But yeah, it was hair versus hair match, which kind of gave it away because that was never going to be Donald Trump that lost his hair. You knew that it was going to win. But I do remember one of the stipulations, Umaga hadn't lost. So that was quite big. And then Bobby Lashley beat him in sort of, I think they did break into a bit of a brawl. Donald Trump and
spike move, didn't he? He would spike him in the neck. Yeah.
Spike him in the neck. They did break out into a bit of a brawl, Donald Trump and McMahon, and some of the biggest potatoes you can get from Donald Trump to McMahon. And then got his head shaved bald while screaming, and fair play to him. He completely, that look was pretty cool, and he was obviously buffed up, and it looked pretty good.
Nice. Okay, what's your second pick, Luke?
So my second one is from over 20 years ago now. The Invasion scene, and just post-Invasion, and like people always crap on the Invasion, say how poor it was because they didn't get the top WCW talent. But in the end, I thought I still look back on it and with fond memories. It was fun. It was good. Everyone got really caught up in it. And finally, at Survivor Series, WWE prevailed in a 5v5 where Austin finally turned and won it. But then the following night, they had the introduction of the Kiss My Ass Club, where William Regal, I believe it was the first inductee of the Kiss My Ass Club, where he had to get down on his knees whilst Vince McMahon pulls his ass out and starts tightening his glutes.
It was not good. It was not good at all.
Hits him on the arse, to retain his job. It happened to Jim Ross, lifelong friend of Vince McMahon, Jim Ross.
Right.
It happened to Shawn Michaels.
It did.
It happened to his son, Shane McMahon.
Yes. Did it happen to Trish Stratus? Maybe.
Trish Stratus, maybe. They obviously made her bark around like a dog in the middle of the ring once, as if that wasn't enough. There are two more. I can't remember who they were off the top of my head now. But 6 inductees to the Kiss My Ass Club, which I think probably linked into. Oh, Paul Heyman was one, surely, wasn't he? Paul Heyman must have been one. But linked in to how I believe Vince McMahon probably ran operations back then, and probably treated the WCW members, not so much ECW because they weren't such a big problem, but the WCW roster coming over, I think he really gave them, not making them kiss his ass, but figuratively kiss his ass. Definitely. I would assume. But yeah, the Kiss My Ass Club, poor guys. His son Vince McMahon having to do it in the middle of the ring, and it's just, and people would hold their heads there. Oh God, no, sweaty old ass.
It was worse than Rikishi in a way.
Oh well, no, actually,
maybe not.
I don't know. Give me Vince McMahon's ass anytime.
Well, it definitely goes down in infamy. So, well, okay, it's hard to follow on from that one, but I'll try. So, my number 2 spot, it's more of a segment because I don't want to really group together the whole McMahon-Austin feud because there was so many amazing things that came out of that. But one particular segment that I remember was when McMahon had actually been injured by Austin at a previous event, and he wound up in hospital. So he was bedridden. And over the course of this Raw, I think it was in 1998, a Raw in 1998, and basically he had lots of different surprise guests come in to try and cheer him up throughout the evening, courtesy of one Mankind, who was kind of like a manservant to Vince at the time, which led to some of his greatest work, to be fair. Mankind, that is. I remember he had that clown come in, which I've written down here, Yerple the Clown, and some balloon making throughout the evening. And that was actually the birth night of Socko, Mr. Socko. He actually brought out Socko to try and cheer up Mr. McMahon, and it wasn't a weapon at that point. It was more of just a sock puppet that he brought out to kind of get a rise out of McMahon. So it was all these things happening, and Mr. McMahon just wanted peace. He just wanted peace and to know that Austin wasn't going to be there at that hospital. He wanted to know he was safe. And of course, you know, you get suckered in. All right, he's okay. And then, of course, this doctor comes in to check in on McMahon at one point, and then the doctor, it pans out, and it's Austin wearing a surgical mask and surgical gears, and he starts laying into McMahon. He starts proper wasting him with any of the things that are lying around. And number one weapon of choice was the bedpan, which was, I think they coined this segment, the bedpan segment, based on what he did with that bedpan. And then I remember vividly, he even tries to stick something up McMahon's bottom. And I don't know what it was, but that seems like you wouldn't be able to get away with that. So there was a lot of chaos. It just really was one of those kind of fantasies, I guess, a lot of people have in their life of beating up their bosses. You know, when you have a really bad boss, I don't anymore, but, you know, I've got to say that, right? But no, I don't though. But, you know, we've all had those bosses that we wouldn't mind sticking it to. And I guess it was just, you know, you could watch one of your favorite people on television and it was pretty reality driven. And he was just doing what he wanted to his own boss. So it was quite funny. And his boss was getting his comeuppance. So it just shows again, Vince, he is the real boss, but he was willing to go to those limits. So I thought it was pretty cool and pretty memorable. Yeah. The bedpan over the head is the image that you always remember, and he just, the way Vince just went, ugh. It was so good.
It's very, very good. It's a good segment.
Yeah. Okay. What about? I mean, it's hard to top some of these, but we've both got a top dog. What is your top number one Vince McMahon moment in WWE?
Well, we both said this, and you were generous enough to give it to me. I think when we both said, "Oh, we're going to do the top three Vinnie Mac pieces," this one comes to everyone's mind: the higher power, with the infamous line, "It was me, Austin."
It was me, Austin.
Yeah, as he takes it off. But the lead up to that, it was just so crazy, and like the way that he utilized Stephanie McMahon in her early days, when she was great actually back then as this this sort of innocent girl next door kind of character, and how the Undertaker, the leader of the ministry, was sort of causing havoc and looked like he was targeting Vince McMahon, and he was targeting his daughter, and he had the sacrifice where Stone Cold came out and made the save for her. Her teddy bear got thrown into a fire, whilst Vince McMahon cried and wept at this teddy bear, and all in the end it was him. But actually, what I like about this most is that this actually created the McMahon Helmsley era, where Vince McMahon, through doing this, pushed her over to Triple H, and that really caused a real good divide. And then we had the corporate ministry that came off the back of this. It was just a fun time. I loved the ministry, the corporate ministry. I thought it was great. And then the McMahon Helmsley era was brilliant. A really good time to be a wrestling fan, a really fond memory to look back on. So yeah, number one, Vince is the higher power, is mine.
I mean, I loved it myself. I love the corporate ministry. I'm a big fan of big schmoz factions, you know, ragtag bunches. I remember they obviously had the Acolytes in there, the Big Boss Man, Midian and Viscera. They had the old Stooges. They had the Mean Street Posse were part of it. Shout out to the Mean Street Posse who've been doing some of our posts lately. Friends of the show. And it was a great unveiling. I kind of feel like they never really knew it was going to be Vince. And that's kind of how they could play into him being upset. And they just felt that was the way that they went in the end. But I even heard like a rumor that they were actually going to bring in Christopher Daniels to be the higher power, which would have been quite a random pick. Yeah. But he was suggested as that role at one point. But definitely a very vivid memory of Vince McMahon in the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hard to top, especially because it's definitely up there for me. But my one, it's near enough the same
Similar time. I think just before, actually.
Definitely. And it's when Vince McMahon and Austin were obviously feuding, and they drew numbers 1 and 2 in the Royal Rumble, which was, the Royal Rumble wasn't really a platform previously that had like the major storyline play out throughout the actual Rumble itself. It was normally to make new stars, but this is kind of a new concept. They brought in, people, having these unfortunate numbers picked but they weren't really in the Rumble to win it anyway. I guess Austin wanted to go on to WrestleMania, and McMahon wanted to do everything he could to stop him. So he felt, I'll put Austin at 1, I'll go 2, and we'll do everything in our power. So the Rumble starts. Austin's just throwing McMahon around, though. It really didn't work in McMahon's favor. I remember, I think it was like one of the oddities or something, like Golga was coming to the ring, and Austin was about to throw McMahon over the top rope, but he just decided to play with him like a toy, and then he started eliminating other people. And McMahon then slid under the top rope, because it's known as the Shawn Michaels rule that you have to go over the top rope and both feet must touch the floor to be eliminated. So going under the bottom rope doesn't count. So McMahon went out to the back of, wherever they were at the time, in the annals.
The arena.
Arena. And, he was probably just relaxing and chilling out. If I'm not mistaken, there might have been segments where he was just, hanging out backstage with the Stooges or so forth. Austin then went looking for him under the bottom rope, and I believe then he got attacked in the bathrooms, and he was left down and out. So the Rumble continues on, and somehow or another they come back and they re-enter right at the end of the match. So in my brain, I'm like, oh, no brainer, Austin's going to win somehow. And well, no, actually, Austin gets kind of mildly distracted. McMahon slides in and then throws Austin over the top rope and wins the Royal Rumble. And he goes on to have well, he doesn't literally because of other things in the storyline, but he wins his shot to go to WrestleMania, which was just, it blew my mind at the time. I was like, what? Like, how can this happen? Like, it was just something like I'd never even thought would happen. It was just not in my wrestling vocabulary that McMahon, the guy who owns the company, would win the Rumble. But it was pretty cool. It sticks out. I wasn't a hater on it like a lot of people were. People said it took away from the history of the Rumble and it wasn't right to have a non-wrestler win. But I think it was just the right move. And like you say, that brought on one of the biggest main events of all time, which I believe was, what was it? Triple H? No, it wasn't. It was
Shawn Michaels. Yeah, Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold.
Exactly, and it was when Mike Tyson got involved eventually.
It was.
Well, wasn't it? So
you had the Capital Carnage, I think it was, with the steel cage match where he finally got the shot. But one thing I think I read about this was McMahon's first in-ring match, or first in-ring performance. He had done little segments, but first time in-ring as a worker. But the build to that was huge. And so when you finally saw Stone Cold be able to get his hands on him, because he'd been arrested before and he'd been held back, finally got it. The crowd went ballistic. They went bananas. And the other thing that people don't usually say about Vince is he bumped his ass off for that. He went around the ring.
How old he is? Like even back then, he was not a young chicken. Like he was
over 50.
Yeah,
he's 77 now, so he was over 50.
And
he was bumping around the ring like no.
And he had many more bumps and many more other matches that are very.
We did, yeah.
So, pretty cool. Okay, well, that was a pretty awesome top three today, Luke. Not so awesome, to think about the Kiss My Ass Club again, to be honest. But yeah, overall, I think we nailed it.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Okay, well, your favorite your favorite segment and mine is the homework segment, which is, because we're both teachers, we like to give out that homework. So basically, this is the segment where we think of something wrestling related that we're going to give to the viewers in the hopes that they will enjoy what we give them as homework. Yeah. What's your offering this week?
So this is one I stumbled upon. As you'll remember from previous, I love my podcasts, certainly love my wrestling podcasts, and there's a really good one at the moment called the Book of Wrestling Podcast on Spotify, and I assume on Apple Music as well. But it's what I like about it. It's I can't remember the presenter's name, but he gets lots of people on it. So for the first episode, for example, he's talking about the Montreal Screwjob between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, and he has both of them on it. He has Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels on it. He also has Kevin Dunn on it, and he has Triple H makes an appearance on it. He gets some really, really interesting guys that were there talking about it. And it's a brand new podcast. There seems to be a new one every couple of days or so. So I highly recommend the Book of Wrestling podcast, certainly if you're a fan from back in the day.
I'm really interested to listen to this. I didn't even know about it. So there you go. You've already sold me over. Fantastic. Okay, well, I'm on the sort of podcast / YouTube offering as well this week. And I'm not sure if you're familiar, but mine is Quizzle Mania.
Yeah, I like Quizzle Mania. It's good.
It's so fantastic. So Quizzle Mania, if you don't know, it's kind of it's on the Parts Fun Known website, but that's run itself by Wrestle Talk, which is a great wrestling podcast and wrestling channel.
I'm now a Patreon subscriber to Wrestle Talk.
There you go.
I gave in.
They're big fans, and they're a bit of an inspiration for WrestleBeards as well. So if you remember back in the day, the old What Cultures, Adam Blompier, he's actually gone over to that channel. So he's part of that brand, and he eventually started this thing called Quizzle Mania. So basically, it's just a watch along where you watch different wrestling YouTubers, wrestlers, and wrestling personalities, and they battle to win the Quizzle Mania title. And they're really bizarre rounds of wrestling trivia, and I like to listen and play along with it, but you're not really playing along, but it's pretty cool. They have Guess My Nips, which is quite a funny one, guessing wrestlers' nipples. They have having to hum along wrestling tunes, and having to do a variety of things. And because they're the channel themselves, they have another board games channel. They're very enthusiastic about games and board games, so a lot of their rounds are based on other famous games and board games, so it's quite fun to watch. They used to do it like bi-weekly, and I think it got a bit out of hand for them because there's a lot of work, so then they've now gone to monthly. But it really is a fun watch. It's a really long watch as well. So I normally, it's something to listen to when I'm nodding off to bed, or I'm at the gym or something like that. They get some big names on there. Sean Ross Sapp, Fightful's big newsbreaker. He's probably one of the biggest wrestling media people out there. He's one of the longest running champions. They have the Good Brothers on there sometimes. Luke Gallows and Luke, what's his name?
Yeah, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson.
Yeah, there we go. They haven't been around in a while. They've had Melina, they've had Victoria, they've had Big Damo, formerly from WWE. I think he was called, what was he called?
Damien Sandow?
No, he was in that family. Big Damo. He was that big hairy British guy. And he was with a few other guys, and he was with Nikki ASH. That was his girlfriend in real life.
Oh, he was. Yes, I do know. I can't remember what they were called. Yeah,
but Insanity. Sanity.
Yeah, Sanity.
That's it. So anyway, it's a great watch if you haven't seen it, but check it out. So 2 great offerings of homework. Tell us what you think in the comments below on those things, and if you've got any other suggestions, we're always willing to try things out ourselves and give them a go too. Okay, Luke, well, that brings us to the end of podcast 12. It's nice to be back in the seats again.
It is nice to be back.
Yeah, we've got lots of other things coming your way soon, guys. So if you haven't seen on the channel, there's a trilogy of unboxing videos where I've been getting some pro wrestling crate boxes sent out to me, and I've been unboxing them for your viewing pleasure. Here's one of the great finds from the last unboxing video. So check those out. What else have we got coming up this week, Luke?
So we got our predictions program for SummerSlam, which takes place this Saturday for our time, Sunday morning. And then we'll be doing a quiz battle, really like not based on Quizzle Mania, but a little inspiration from Quizzle Mania called the Wrestle Rich List. So look out for that as well.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the last time we did a quiz, we ended up drawing. So I don't really want to end like that this time. I'm sure we can do better than that. Another thing I've actually got in the pipeline coming also next week. You know, Luke, but you out there may know, I went to Money in the Bank 2016, and I'm going to be doing a little expose with my friend Raymond, who came along with me, about that event. He's not a wrestling fan, so it'll be quite a funny take on things because he came along with me. And it was the event where Titus O'Neil kissed his own son on the lips. So there you go. I was there, folks. I was there. All right. Well, with that said, thanks, Luke, for for being a gracious host, and we will catch you for the podcast 13 coming your way. I think it'll be, just around the corner.
Yeah. Next week.
For Luke, I think he's over there. I've been Shrek for WrestleBeards Worldwide.